How are you, Bridget?
How are you? I'm well, thank you.
You've been well over the last month or so?
I have.
Since we last met up?
Yes, and you've had a birthday.
I've had a birthday. Do I look older? I feel older. I tell you. I was just saying off air how exhausting this time of year it is for us. Our family has a major cluster. So we're just party. It's like Christmas, but all spread out over a couple of weeks. It's just exhausting. First world problem, though.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It was interesting. Actually, we talk about non-violent communication. It was one of our dinners was. It was interesting. There's one character that actually. It comes along, obviously, one of these, part of the family. I won't name anybody, but it was really interesting watching how there's one character, in the alpha male type. Mm-hmm. Lovely man, obviously lovely guy. But there was, he gets stuck on politics or, blah, blah, blah. And he starts going on about, in my day, blah, blah. That's, a classic example of, like being, and we usually all just sit there and go, yes. Yes, but last night another couple stood up and said, enough. Mm-hmm. And basically, literally, put the hand up and said, we're not going to have any of that because, they were the hosts. Mm-hmm. They said, we're not going to have that talk at the table, because he always mentions how the youth of today don't understand this, don't understand that, blah, blah, blah. And, they both of them together as a couple stood up and said, enough's enough.
Strong boundary.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And we're all sort of going, why didn't we do that 40 years ago?
Yeah.
But it was an interesting concept of non-violent communication, whereas like strength, and
because it's not about being nice necessarily. It's about being really clear with your yes and clear with your no.
Yep.
And making requests that are clear and specific. Like even Marshall would say, "There's too many words.
Yeah.
I'm not enjoying how many words are coming at me, and maybe I can't really follow where you're going with that because I can't take it all in. So I'd really like to hear, what are you feeling right now?
Right.
So take it more, rather than their kind of conversation coming at me, like inviting them to go within more and go, what is here for you? What's motivating these words?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, when somebody will do massive generalisations like, all of the people today or, blah, blah, blah. So you don't... and I'm not quite sure, and we all know those type of characters, and I probably do it myself, where you do those massive, you get this broad spectrum, you throw everyone in the same bucket, and then you don't really understand how powerful your words are, even though you might only just be having general conversation in a way, but when you start insulting a whole generation of people, because I've noticed the youngsters in that situation I was talking about before, have come up to me afterwards, similar types of situations, said, we're not all like that. We don't think like that. And I mean, I know, I get it, but,
Yeah, so they really want to be seen for who they are and what they're bringing as individuals.
Yeah.
And so we would call that a classic jackal rant, the jackal language.
Rant. I like that.
Yeah, so the jackal
That's
language.
the name of my next album.
It's all those absolutes. You never do this. You always do that.
Yeah.
They all, them, us and them stuff. And all this separation, and the reality is we're all connected.
That's right. And that the broader that stroke is, when you're saying they are all doing that, the harder it is for the individual actually to peel that away from themselves, which is quite, it's sort of, what's the word for it? It's counterintuitive in a sense that you can make a big, massive generalisation, but it really narrows straight to people's hearts,
Yeah, it can be painful.
That's right. And they don't know how long they will carry that with them.
We don't know how our words are very powerful, and we don't know the impact that each person is going to take that on, and it might affect them for the rest of their lives. We don't know.
That's right.
So
Yes.
being really conscious, really taking responsibility for what comes out of our mouths.
Yep.
And the more like those generalizations, they don't give us much information about the actual person and what they're feeling. And, you know, maybe there's some pain for them around that topic.
Yep.
But rather than saying, you know, making I statements and saying, you know, I feel uncomfortable about what's going on and being specific and, you know, because I think, you know, the other day a child didn't give me their seat on the bus and I was really struggling to stand up. So that's a specific observation.
Right.
And then you can have empathy for that because I can understand that. But if they're just going, oh, kids these days, and lumping them all together, then you have that empathy for them because you kind of go, what do you mean, you know? And that not all of them are like that, like your example.
And it's interesting that if you look at it in, the sense of how do I keep people on side? Because, you know, you never know when you're going to need somebody. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to burn your bridges.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a long life, isn't it? You're putting, you know, all of a sudden you're putting down all the kids, you know, you're all lazy, all this and all that. And then 10 years' time, they're your doctor.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. You just don't know, do you?
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to buy something off them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's best to try and keep, you know, a neutral zone.
And my guess is that this man did have some pain or, some is unhappy about something, but he doesn't get any response. You know, mostly he's going to get shut down, from these broad generalisations, and people are going to kind of be wary around him. And rather than walking towards him and going, oh, so what is it? Can you help me understand? Tell me more about that.
Yep.
So it's actually he's not getting his needs met there either. And those around him are feeling perhaps uncomfortable and disconnected.
Yep. But the trick is, isn't it, in that delivery of that separation of if you know, I felt a bit sorry for this fella in that situation, even though I sort of went, oh God, thank God someone says something. I actually still felt sorry for him because he was sort of a bit isolated and blah, blah, blah. So in that delivery of saying what you want is where the non-violent communication is really, really, really important, isn't it? Yeah.
Because they could have said, you know, we don't really want that sort of talk today, but we'd really welcome your thoughts on blah, 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 you know, something else. So invite something else. You know, I'd really like to know how you are today. Tell us about that. Or, you know.
So are you saying like a bit of deflection goes a long way?
Well, it's kind of like an invitation. Like, I'm not so keen on that right now. And I'd really like I'm not shutting you down completely.
That's right, yeah.
I want to know this piece, you know. Yeah,
so how do you tell someone, you know, to cease their behaviour, even if it's instinctual, but also you're still valuable?
Yeah.
That's what you've still got other things that are valuable and bring that.
Yeah, so you're not shutting the door completely and making them wrong, just saying, right now, this is what I'm wanting, I'm really interested in. And you could pick a piece of what they were saying.
Yep.
Go, I was really hearing that there's some discomfort around young children, you know, on the bus or whatever it was.
Yep.
And then hone in on that and maybe bring in something that can be a conversation that's enriching and connecting rather than this big blanket judgment.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, isn't it? Because there'll always be a divergence topic that's still relevant to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Especially when if it's such a broadcasting, you know, big, you know. You could always ask how their youth was and what they did.
Yeah.
You must have been perfect.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, that's right. I find myself slipping into that as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
We often do, don't we?
Yeah.
And how much intergenerational is our communications? You know, do we bring up a whole new set of way of communicating with each generation, or do you think it's always pretty much similar?
Well, I think, you know, maybe this man's generation, the older generation, then really not taught, particularly men, unfortunately, not taught to value feelings and sort of maybe struggle in the social situation with, you know, where there's that wanting to connect on a deeper level with family and friends, you know, that maybe have not been valued
Yeah.
And wasn't valued, I don't think, in the past.
Yeah.
And in fact, shut that down. Those feelings are messy. We don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
They just get in the way. And if you have, as a man, if you have feelings, you're probably weak.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's an interesting place to be as a man, because you feel like there's a lot of pull to go, be expressive, say what you want, but as soon as you start going and bubbling, the most enlightened of people will sort of go, oh my goodness, and stand back from you and feel uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden you go back into your shell again, and you go, oh, maybe I can't show my feelings. Maybe, I always feel a little jealous of the ability for women, but the way that they can cry and talk and communicate, and there doesn't seem to be much societal pressure to shut that down, but there is for the man, isn't it?
Yeah, there's that macho kind of image that...
And it's not just a man thing. It's, it's from the women focus too. It's what they expect from their the strong, tall, silent, archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. I think you really touched on something that's difficult to navigate often, because there is that longing for the knight in shining armour.
Yeah.
The man that's going to be my rock and be there when I need him and be my, sturdy kind of backup man. And so when for a woman she sees the vulnerability, it can be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's, something unusual for the relationship. And learning to stay with that, to stay present, to not take responsibility for making it better or fixing it, and just being present to it can be kind of tricky.
And that is what you've just, not fixing it, not getting... You're describing the strong, silent type, who just stands there and goes, okay, yep, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not fixing anything. And all of a sudden they're the strong, silent type.
Yeah.
Which is sort of,
Well, it's kind of like, for me, it's like being really present to whatever's here, whatever emotion is here, and not jumping in to fix or shut down or make better or give advice. It's empathy, like staying present to it. But when I hear you say about the strong, silent time, I think that's kind of different. It's more disconnected and like shut down themselves. So it's a different quality I'm talking about, is that quality of being able to stay present but not feeling responsible. Like, yes, this person's having an emotion. Yes, I can care that there's something going on for them, but it's not actually my responsibility to step in and do anything.
Right.
Like, I'm just holding that space for them to express whatever it is.
See, I'm trying to work out because once again, I'm just coming from the male perspective, how does a male react in those situations? It's really interesting, like maybe the feeling or the empathetic male might tend to try to fix.
Yeah. And not just men. Like, I think often when we're in the presence of emotion, our own pain can be triggered. And so there's an impetus to kind of impulse to fix or to stop it because it triggers us.
Yeah.
So it's a real skill to develop in yourself, to be able to stay present to someone else's pain or discomfort and just be there and be okay with it.
Do you think that's easier? Just exploring this gender thing. Is that easier with women to women, or...?
I think it's more common that women grow up with that. Like, maybe they start with their mothers. The mothers are very present to their emotional well-being. And then with their girlfriends, chatting with girlfriends and sharing intimate details about what's going on for them. It's much more kind of okay. Whereas for boys, unfortunately, often dads are out working, they're absent father thing, and they come home from work and they're exhausted. They don't have the skills. They didn't practice that in their upbringing and in their schoolyard. It was all about sports and being tough and strong and not crying. And it's very sad. I feel sad that that's how it is, and we're still dealing with that stereotype. We're still trying to break down that, gender divide, I suppose.
Yeah. But it's got to come from both sides. It's not like, you know, that allowing that the feminine in the man to live.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I just see it too often that it's like spoken about.
Yeah.
That men should be gentle and feeling and all this, and then as life progresses, that role it's a lot narrower than the narrative of saying that men can do this and men can do that. I think they're a lot more constricted than when, you know, than the broad all men should feel and, you know, express themselves and have, you know, good communications together and all that sort of stuff. It's a lot narrower when it comes to, and I know with adult children who are men, you know, just watching how they sort of get, you know, it's a very difficult time, I think. You know?
I agree. I think it's a really difficult time to be a young man.
Yeah.
And with all the Me Too movement and consent, like, I think it's probably quite confusing sometimes, and difficult to navigate. And again, you know, we're not taught in schools or about emotion, how to manage it. Well, maybe more now, more schools now, but, you know, historically we haven't been taught. We've been taught algebra and maths, but not how to deal with conflict and how to manage emotions and how to really connect with each other and listen to each other.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like that's what's missing, has been missing, and hoping that'll change.
Well, your workshops are exclusively for men.
I do run one for men.
One is
yes.
exclusively.
Yeah,
for men.
mostly I run groups.
Yep.
Workshops for groups, and I'm just doing one next year for couples, especially for couples in around Valentine's Day, which will be lovely. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got one coming up soon. The 5th of October it begins, and it's actually online because I've decided I had a request to do that, and it's kind of new for me, so it's going to be interesting how that goes.
Like a Zoom?
Yeah, Zoom. Yeah, and
one-on-one or
with a group.
So how many would be in a group online?
I don't know. Depends how many book in. At the moment, I've got one.
Okay.
One brave man, and I think I'd cap it at about 10 probably to keep it manageable. And we'll just meet on a Tuesday evening for 5 weeks.
Okay.
7 to 9:30, and yeah. And I think with having men together, something beautiful happens for the men somehow without having women there. I think there's less, there's, I don't know, more freedom somehow to be able to be, like you were saying, express themselves and admit to some vulnerability and some fear. Yeah, whatever's there that maybe a facade or a pretense of masculinity or toughness, I don't know. But I'm curious about my role. Like, I was wondering when I first offered it to men, and I was thinking, how is that going to kind of maybe safe to have a female be able to ask questions of me that perhaps they wouldn't feel comfortable asking their partners.
Right.
And having a female perspective where there's no kind of presence as well. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was beautiful. The last one we had was so beautiful. In fact, incredibly intimate. On the first session, I was surprised that I don't know.
What elements did you find surprising?
There were tears on the first evening, and for me, and I was really moved by that, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting thing for me to see, that these men have that trust in each other to be able to be exposed like that and vulnerable in that group.
Perspective. A lot of times, like, the sorrow is the same. You know, the situation, you might have exactly the same situation with a man or a woman, and the man cries, the woman cries and the man doesn't. But the man's still in exactly the same amount of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just not. And I don't think it's anything about social conditioning or anything. I think it's just a physical thing. I think men are just totally different when it comes to that, like, tearing up thing. You know, men just, you know, of course men cry, but, you know, maybe, I mean, my wife can cry at a baby oil advert, you know. Like, okay, what are you upset about? Oh, that advert is beautiful. I'm going, what the? I cry when my grandma dies.
Yeah.
So it's an interest, but it doesn't mean you're not sad or not feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes I worry that gets, misinterpreted.
Right.
That you're actually not hurting. You go, well, I am hurting. I'm just not crying.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Yeah. So what would you find that they were crying? Was it a relationship status or the interpersonal stuff, like the way they perceive themselves or the way they perceive themselves in society or in a relationship?
A lot of the themes that emerged were around relating. Yeah. And I'm not sure if that's because that is what how I focus the advertising of it was a bit of a focus around that. But it turned out that there were a lot of similar issues. And so there was safety, I think, in the group to explore that deeper and really share vulnerably how that was for them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so beautiful to be a witness to that. I felt so honoured.
And how do you take it to another? Is there level upon level upon level with this stuff, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lifelong learning.
Yeah.
For me, still, after 15 years, I'm still learning. And luckily I have my partner who's done a lot of training as well, and we can support each other in it.
Yeah.
And layers are still unravelling and things.
Is he a strong silence?
I'm not sure I'd say that, no.
I reckon my wife would wish I was a silent type.
I think, a lot of women long for that vulnerability and intimacy, and it's not available to them. And, the whole fix-it thing, or like men, I think I spoke last time about how men are kind of hardwired to find solutions from way back in our caveman days.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to be just present to an emotion and not feel like you've got a job and a role to do there, and that to show that you care, you need to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm hearing from women is that they really just long to be held and heard fully. And often with women, we want to just we want a sounding board and we want to brainstorm stuff, and if we have enough space and safety, we can come up with our own solutions, which of course are much more satisfying because they're not imposed by someone else, and so it's empowering. And so it's a really different kind of perspective, I think, and that's what often conflict in a relationship will happen, because the needs are the same, but the approach, the strategy is different.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of time, once again, I'm probably just putting a broad, stroke across the whole thing. But a lot of times that either men perceive it or women perceive it, that vulnerability is not really sexy,
Right.
And that, women actually are a bit repelled by it, even though they want to say, yeah, be that.
Yeah.
As soon as you become that, it's like... I just see it among my friends to see that when they re-partner, a lot of the times I find quite a hard, that sort of ruggedness is, a little bit of shut-downness, and, somehow it's sexy in one angle, and then once we get into a relationship, it's not very, it's not good then. You've got to almost like transfer yourself from being like this sort of tough guy who sort of is appealing and to a feeling and sensitive person once the relationship develops. So it's like, I suppose what you're saying, it's constant evolution, isn't it?
It is. And I think, relationships do go through that when it's very physical at the beginning, the honeymoon period. It's all about sex and touch and all that. And then, the depth, you'd start longing for more depth, I think.
Yeah.
And longer term kind of sustainable love that's not the honeymoon kind of lust thing. And maybe the signals are different between men and the women and what they're longing for. But I think, I don't know, my experience is that women do long for that connection, that intimacy and that vulnerability in their man, and that maybe there's a disconnect around how that looks or how it's received, and maybe it is a bit scary at the beginning for the woman to see it, and how do I hold that? How do I stay present to that without feeling like the rug's been pulled from under me, or I don't know what to do? This is new. What do I do now?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because like a lot of times when you're feeling something for someone, you don't want to like lose all of yourself into the person. especially when you first.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, someone who's not sort of perfect is sort of good because you're holding yourself there. You go, oh no, I'm not going to. I'm enjoying this relationship, but I haven't lost myself completely. You know, like with love. You know, like sometimes love can be like really quite scary in that. Like you're losing your own sort of sense of self or your own, you know, like your own space. And there's a lot of things that you have to negotiate, don't you?
There is. And when I hear you say that, I'm thinking about what we call staying in your own lane.
Yep.
Like how important it is to take full responsibility for yourself and to not be taking responsibility for your partner.
Yep.
To love them and also know that they are fully capable human being of their own needs, you know, meeting their own needs and dealing with their own, you know, taking responsibility for their own emotion. And often in a relationship, in a long-term relationship, what we will do is cross into their lane and take responsibility. But we know we can't make other people happy.
Yeah.
We cannot make them happy. That's their job. We can support them to find that happiness somewhere, but not make them happy. And that's often where, you know, we'll get into this kind of enmeshed, codependent, icky thing that doesn't actually serve either of us.
And then when you're trying to unwind that by sort of going, hey, you know, I need my own space, or I need, you know, just a moment. You know, I'm not saying we're breaking up, you know, but you're going, hold it, you just need to re-establish boundaries. Yeah, I mean, are those what's the language you use in those situations? That, you know, then your communication in that is vital, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's about being really clear about what you want and making requests that are super specific. And not making assumptions. Like so often we make assumptions. The other person, if they really love me, they'd be doing this, or you know, they're doing this because of that. You know, they're being mean or they're ignoring me or whatever. And yet, you know, we don't know. We don't know what they're doing or what's motivating them unless we ask. We check in.
Well, you can. I think when you're in a relationship, you got also the point where sometimes you can perceive everything that's not being said that's exactly complimentary about, you know, yourself as being a threat and being bullied and stuff. And so, and that's only because you're so close. You know, maybe someone who's not so close can be quite, you know, oh yeah, you're this and you're that. You go, oh yeah, okay, whatever, mate, I don't care. You know, but once your loved one says it, it's like
it hurts.
Cupid arrow goes straight to the heart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's kind of sad that often the ones that, like for me, the ones I have the most difficulty giving empathy to in the world is my beloved, my partner, and my son.
Yeah, right.
Because of that care, you know, I want to, like particularly with my son, I want to cotton wool him. I don't want him to hurt. I don't want him to be suffering. I just love him so much. I want to keep him safe and fix him and all that. I notice all that in that impetus in me when I'm with him. It's so hard for me to stand back and let him make mistakes and learn and be an adult, as he's an adult now. He's 26, nearly 27. And even now, it's hard for me to just, to be have a boundary and be in my lane, let him be in his lane. And with my beloved as well, my husband is like,
I'm hearing you on this.
Tricky. And I hear what you're saying. You know, when someone says things, I can let it deflect off. If they're not close to me, they judge me or whatever, have an opinion of me, that's fine.
Yep.
But with my beloved, it can be really deeply painful.
Yep.
And yet, when I can go, okay, so what motivated them to say that thing to me that I found so painful, I can go and check.
Yep.
And go, I can make assumptions and go, oh, because they're really mean and they think I'm lazy or they think I'm terrible or whatever. They don't love me anymore. Or I can go and check it out with them and get the truth. Go, hey, I noticed when you said that was kind of painful for me. Would you help me understand what was going on for you? What was motivating those comments?
Yeah.
With no judgment, with no make wrong, just like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What was there? Help me understand.
It's interesting, is it like when you got love involved, it's your power to hurt and heal are just both very powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. Yeah. And there's got to be sort of this transition point, isn't there, within when you're getting to, especially with children, like you're saying, because they're growing up all the time. So that transition point. You keep on coming to new transition points, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, like, I know exactly what you're saying. You know, I got a son who's the same. You know, I express my opinion, but he takes it as a different sort of, you know, like I'm telling him what to do, and I go, okay. And it's taken me a while to get that, you know, because I'm saying I'm just coming from a good place, and he'll sort of go, well, you know, I don't want your opinion. I want to find my own opinion. You know, he said, he sent me a card saying, Bridget, you know, I like to, you know, listen to your opinions, but take the scenic view. And I thought, what a great way of saying it. You know, like you take your directions, but take the scenic view. So otherwise, you know, like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to go my own way.
Yeah.
You know, which is, you know, and it might tend to be the same place.
Yeah.
But
it's his.
Yeah, that's right. Letting people own their thinking.
And so often, you know, when that's that impetus to give advice, what I want to do is ask, would you like to hear, I've got an idea, would you like to hear it? And then they have a choice to go, yeah, nah, no thanks, or yeah, I'd like to hear it.
Yep.
So always checking in so they have that power of choice and the respect that I don't know better. I have an idea that might work or might not work, but I don't know better than them.
No.
Or, you know, something like, yeah, well, that's happened to me and this worked for me, but not this is what you should do. I think you should do this. Because as human beings, we don't really enjoy being told what to do.
No.
Not at all. And often what you'll find is even if someone says yes to your advice, if they weren't wanting advice, they're probably not going to do it anyway.
Yeah,
They might just nod, and then walk off and do something completely different because they didn't want advice.
Yeah. But I mean, I know myself, I actually go to people and certain people and go, I want your advice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
it
that's different, isn't it?
now. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really clear. You're going to someone and you're asking for what you need. You know, I want some advice. Can you help me out here?
Yeah.
It's very different to your son coming up and just having a chat with you about something that's bothering him. And you can always check in and go, right, okay, so right now, do you want me to help you brainstorm a solution? Or are you wanting advice? Or you just want me to hear you? And highly likely it might be, I just want you to listen, Dad.
That's right. Because often too, like, you know, in the, you know, the machinations of life is that, you know, you say this can happen if you do this, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, give a couple of choices. But also, you know, the process of finding out how things will either work or not, you know, you might be in the big picture finding out one thing that works or not, maybe like a career choice or whatever. But involved in that career choice is a whole series of events where you've learnt, you know, a trillion other little snippets for life that you get, that just going, well, this is the outcome, circumnavigates all that other sort of peripheral learning. And, you know, as parents, we go, we don't want you to hurt.
Yeah.
We don't, the peripheral learning, we only think of the bad things usually, probably, and go, we don't want you to, you know, do this, we don't want to do that, you don't want to hurt. But, you know, out of those 1,000 joys, there's 1,000 sorrows, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, so much more satisfying for them to make their own choice and just be fully heard and then just work out the solution for themselves, you know. It's just like so much better and empowering.
I suppose there must be a point of intervention at some stage, I suppose, you know, if someone's...
Yeah, if you're worried about their safety.
Self-harm or...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not... What we're talking about now with nonviolent communication is about good skills for sort of healthy living.
Yeah.
But they're not... But in triage, so to speak, in an emergency, maybe all these rules go out the window a little bit, you know.
Well, I think they come to the fore as well because, like, holding my ground even and going, you know, I'm not responsible for them. I'm responsible for me and my reaction and my actions can help me to kind of be present to it, but also for safety, I would use force if needed. Like if a child's going to cross the road and there's a car coming, absolutely I'm going to grab them and take them out of harm's way. Yeah. But then I might speak to them about, choice and about safety and about, my needs and my concerns. But in that moment, I'm not going to start dialoguing with someone if there's imminent danger. Yeah. I'm going to act first and then, talk it through, dialogue about it after.
And also, I suppose, when you're communicating with people who are in grief, that'd be different again, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, with a similar, you're just really giving them empathy,
right?
Being present to what's here,
yeah,
and not giving advice unless it's invited, because we want to have power with them. In NVC, we want to have the same. We want to be equals. So as soon as I give advice, it kind of makes me have an energy of I've got power over you because I know better.
Yeah.
And that's sort of not empowering for them, and it's disconnecting because it's like us and them,
How about like teaching, like when you're like, say, as teachers in a classroom situation where you've got 30 different characters, how easy it to, be always in that state of, accepting everyone's or getting everyone, because you are portraying, say, information.
Yeah.
That's either right, that they have to get either right or wrong. So all of a sudden there's a different dynamic again, isn't there?
Yeah. There's a lot of books been written about the peaceful classroom and parenting with nonviolent communication. And I said, it is different because you've got a different parameter. You are teaching something and there are certain things that you want them to get correct and, there's things. So it's different. But I guess you make that distinction between is this a non-negotiable or is this a request?
Okay.
Is there some choice in this or is there this is what has to happen in this classroom? So, but they do bring in choice and they bring in sharing circles, and when there's a conflict they can have, all the people affected by the conflict coming together and speaking about how it was, what needs of theirs, how they feel, what needs were not met by the conflict. And classrooms find that really helpful. There's a video I just put on my Facebook page that they have brought NVC into this school and in this high school, and the teachers and the students talking about how effective it's been for helping them navigate conflicts and things that arise, in the school ground and with the teachers and the parents, and really effective.
How long has nonviolent communication been around as a format? Is it?
It was started in America in the 1960s, and it's very big over there, and it's grown in Europe and Germany and Korea. It's in kindergartens now in Korea, and they've translated all of Marshall's books into Korean, so it's very big in Korea. In Australia, it's sort of very slowly started. We had a first IIT in 2004, I think, international training, with international trainers coming out, and Marshall Rosenberg, I believe, came out and he certified several trainers that are still growing the movement. But in South Australia, it's small. There's just a handful of us, and there's no certified trainers in South Australia yet.
How old would the founder be, Marshall?
He passed away about 5 years ago now, I think. Yeah. And he used to travel around a lot doing trainings and also mediations in you name a war-torn country, and he was there mediating, in Ireland and in Rwanda and in the Middle East. He was there doing all sorts of work.
I was going to say, because it's going to be my next question, is how close is nonviolent communication to political correctness? Is it like... Because like when you're talking about negotiating, like it's in world powers and such.
Yeah. It kind of doesn't, it's more about seeing people as human beings, no matter what political divide there is.
Yeah.
When you are able to, Marshall would say, when you can get one person to reflect back the other person's needs, when they've really heard the other person's precious needs that are present or not met in the conflict, and then the other person can hear the other person's need, when they can both hear each other's needs and so fully heard and fully seen, he said, I can resolve any conflict within 20 minutes.
Okay.
It takes a while to have them reflect their needs because they'll get judgments and criticism and assumptions or whatever. But once they've actually really heard and then spoken back what they've heard to the other person, so they both feel heard and understood, then they can resolve, things that have been going on for 30 years or whatever. That's what he found.
Well, they should be teaching this in Parliament, shouldn't they?
Yes.
They should have it, someone sitting up there 24/7.
Yeah.
Forget the Speaker of the House. Have a
That'd be
non-violent
amazing.
communicator sitting up there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Now, tell us what you got coming up. If you've got workshops,
So I've got the men's one on
yep.
October the 5th
Yep.
for 5 weeks. And then I've got one on the 4th and 5th of December, all about Christmas, dealing with navigating, food, alcohol, presents,
Yep.
who's coming, what house we're going to, all those decisions
Yep.
and potential conflicts, how to navigate that. So just before the Christmas period. And then I've got the couples one coming up in February, around Valentine's Day, so the 2 days before Valentine's Day.
I tell you what, a lot of if you were in shutdown around Christmas this time, it would have been difficult last Christmas. Were we in the throes of it? Can't even remember what was happening last Christmas. Did we have limits on our houses?
I think we did. Yeah.
Because that must be so difficult for some families.
Yeah.
Who is on the fringe of being in the family and who's not.
Yeah.
Horrible decisions. A lot of clever dialogue is needed there, isn't it?
Yeah.
to make people feel okay about themselves. So that all sounds wonderful. So how will they get in contact with you?
So they can find me on my website on restoreconnect.com.au or on Facebook, Restore Connect on Facebook. And I also see people individually and I see couples as well from home. So
beautiful. So you're going to pop in another month or so?
I will, if you want me back, that'd be awesome.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's endless things we can talk about on this subject without a doubt.
Thanks, Marnie.
All right, good on you, Bridget. You take care, mate.
You too.